Okay.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I'd like to go ahead and call the meeting to order. I'd like to welcome everyone to the monthly meeting for November for the Clark County Board of Education, and we're here to discuss educational matters in relation to the district. I'd like to have everyone stand and observe a moment of silence. I wanted to point out that 150 years ago this afternoon, the Gettysburg Address was uttered by President Abraham Lincoln in Gettysburg. I do remember seeing Ken Burns special on it, and there was, I can't remember the orator, who was somebody smart, probably knows this person's name, but one of the great speakers of his time came up and
Edward Everett.
Thank you. Stood in the rain and spoke for many hours, 2 hours, I believe, hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. Had a lot of things to say. And Abraham Lincoln spoke for what the Gettysburg Address last 2 minutes. I think its words resonate to this very day. So I'd like everybody to reflect on those words as we observe a moment of silence. Now the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item of business is adoption of the agenda. Does anyone have any changes or alterations to the agenda? If not, a motion is in order to approve the agenda as offered.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion by Mr. McGowan.
Second.
Second by Dr. Ricketts. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next is item is approval minutes for June 10th, 2013 special meeting, October 15th, 2013 regular meeting, and October 22nd, 2013 special meeting. I have some alterations which I'll read out loud to the June 10th, 2013 special meeting. Of what was offered on the website, page 1, no changes. First part of page 2, no changes. After the part where Ms. Hicks left the meeting, I'd like to add, after Mrs. Hicks' departure, Chair Kudak elected not to proceed with any further business other than rescheduling the candidates' interviews for the following day, since an on-site quorum no longer existed. After that new paragraph, number 174 at 6:54 p.m., a motion was made by Dr. Griffith and seconded by Dr. Kudak to adjourn closed session and return to open session. The vote was 2-0, with Dr. Griffith and Dr. Kudak voting aye, and Mrs. Hicks and Mrs. Ritchie absent. Mr. McGowan was participating and voted yes by phone. However, his vote was not recognized by the chair due to the legality of his participation being questioned. New paragraph, at 6:55 p.m., a motion was made to adjourn. The vote was 2-0, with Dr. Griffith and Dr. Kudak voting aye, and Mrs. Hicks and Mrs. Ritchie absent. Mr. McGowan was participating and voted yes by phone. However, his vote was not recognized by the chair due to the legality of his participation being questioned. Everyone is okay with that. A motion is in order to approve the minutes for the June 10th, 2013 special meeting.
Go ahead.
Is everyone voting on the motion? Is everyone voting on the set of minutes?
Sure.
It would just be us three.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Motion by Dr. Griffith.
Second.
Second by Ms. Hicks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 3-0 with Dr. Griffith, Ms. Hicks, and Dr. Kudak voting yes, and Ms. Ritchie and Mr. McGowan not voting. Okay. The motion is in order to approve the October 15, 2013 regular meeting minutes and October 22nd, 2013 special meeting minutes. Any changes, comments, alterations, or suggestions to either of those sets of minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the meetings from October 15th and October 22nd, the minutes from those two meetings.
Okay. Motion by Dr. Griffith.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. McGowan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Student staff recognition. We were going to say we have some items for next month.
Yeah.
Public comments? Does anyone sign up for public comments? Reverend Baker.
Not a reverend.
I thought you were.
No.
There is a Reverend Baker today.
That's my dad.
Oh, okay. You have his presence.
I want to thank the board for allowing me to speak at this public meeting. First of all, I want to thank retired Superintendent Dr. Ferris on her leadership for being a major player in improving our Clark County School District test scores in 2012 and 13 school year. On October 22nd, I listened to the principals giving their students' achievement reports. There were two principals that said they had teachers to leave the comfort zone and they're getting good results. Both the principals stated that they needed more teachers. I applaud the teachers who were willing to accept the challenges that were given, and the K-Prep district scores show that our deficiencies with all the schools were math, writing, and reading. All principals say that there was problems to the board, but there were no specifics given to the board as to what is being done to improve our student deficiencies in those three categories. Are there anything being done? I'm quite sure there is, but no one really stated to the board anything what they were going to do in there to improve their school to help in the deficiency. I'm suggesting that if the schools stay on budget, the money may be there to hire more teachers. I'm also suggesting that every quarter, the superintendent give the board an update on whether each school is over or under budget. This is just one more way of informing the community and also being frugal with taxpayers' money. The reason I suggested that was last year our schools was over budget, ranging from $200,000 to $1,849,000. No doubt the money was probably needed for the schools, but by doing this will give more information to the board and the public. One of the other issues I have is a concern about flex time, although I'm not familiar with it and don't really understand it completely. All of us realize that there are deficiencies in those three areas, and why not use this flex time to help the students improve their deficiencies? You know, it should be a requirement, not an option for them. I'm hearing that it is used basically for social connection, people playing drugs, those different social things, but I don't take that to heart, you know, but I'm just suggesting that there's deficient kids out there that it should be made a requirement in those flex times to work on their issues. The other thing that I am asking Superintendent Christie and the members of the board if they have proposed a new grade configuration to Kentucky Department of Education. I am hearing that the proposal includes moving 6th grade to elementary schools, reconfigure OGRC to become 7th and 8th grade centers, reconfigure SURE to become a preschool and kindergarten center. I'm asking which school will change and how will it affect the present facility plan. In the October 16 meeting, the board was asking for specifics from the superintendent, and some of the board members seem to be in the dark and only getting generic answers about the proposal that was given to the Kentucky Department of Education. I know the board voted 4-1 to reconvene the local planning committee. My question is, why is there a predetermined proposal given to the Kentucky Department of Education before the facility committee reconvenes? Is that supposed to be the responsibility of the facility committee to make that recommendation?
It is. And in fact, in the item that there is a conflict between the local planning committee and the board, and KDE has to educate it, they'll decide in favor of the local planning committee. So it's their decision.
But don't you think that you've already set the groundwork for them on the direction that they are supposed to go?
I think there are some things, if you look at what was in the newspaper today, there are some things that KDE is going to approve, and there are some things that KDE is not going to approve. And I think we're giving a very, very tight structure to work in. So I do think there is enough concern with the community that how the buildings are to be filled and what the grade structure is going to be and all that. I think the community has had some issues with that, and needs to be able to work through the local planning committee and get those issues out of hand so we can move forward.
May I address the flex time?
Sure.
Sure. Let me assure you that the students who are struggling do not have the option necessarily to have all that freedom during flex time. Flex time is a short time. There's also some class periods that are longer, and during those longer class periods, students are pulled out and they're worked with. In fact, there are some teachers that have had to give up their I-time, is what they call it, classes, so that they can focus on those students who are deficient. So a lot that is being done. Although it shows, what you see out there in the community and what you hear sounds like, oh, they're all up there playing. They're really not.
You really don't get the true story of what's really going on. You just get what you want to hear.
Yeah. So both of those things are going on. So the students who need the extra time are getting it.
Thank you. Next item is item number 3, statement of updates. Mr. Christie.
Just a few things to touch on here quickly, just for the parents, those who might be watching tonight on live stream. Midterm reports went out on Monday with the students, so parents, you should be expecting those at home now. Just to let you know, your action last month when you approved the Division CMP3 math program that was ordered today, so we're moving forward with that in the last board meeting. Wanted to mention that Mr. Owen and Mr. Osborne will be attending the ACT Summit in Louisville this Friday. They'll be presenting in one of the breakout sessions there. If you're interested in going to that or anything, let me know, and I'll try to get the exact time. I'll get the date and get the time that they're presenting. I didn't write down the exact time today. They'll be presenting on some behavioral interventions. I wanted to mention also that our clinical nursing assistants out at the ATC will begin their rotations. This year, they're going to be doing those at Clark Regional. They've been going to Montgomery County to do those because Clark Regional has a long-term care unit. They were able to get those bills, and then we're going to be doing that here, so now we're not having to transport over to Montgomery County this year. The alternate assessment began on November 4th, and we'll be continuing to work through that until December the 13th. Here in the last few days, the Phoenix Academy partnered with KUT to produce a video entitled Zombie Counseling. I watched it today. It's pretty good. It's a pretty good video. So if you get a chance to look that up, I imagine they'll be doing some more work probably in the future. And we're working on it. If it's not already, we'll have that connection to that on our website, so you can get to it from there. I wanted to mention also that Kathy Jarman joined our central office staff. She's working here now as she was the attendance clerk at Conwright Middle School, and she's here with us now at central office as the district attendance data coordinator. So we welcome her to our office staff here. This last couple things that I wanted to mention here, we talk about a lot of things. You see a lot of this stuff in the papers and read about it and everything, but there's lots of things that happen that you don't see and hear a lot about. One of those things is here just this last week, we completed 100% of our employees completed their open enrollment for health insurance in time without any extensions, and that's largely due to the hard work of Lindsay Rice here at the government. So we thank her for doing that. The second one is the lead report. We do that every year. That's a requirement, and we have to meet the requirements every year. But that's a huge job, because every year they have to account for every certified teacher and administrator in this district. And in the schools, that means they have to verify where the teachers are teaching, not only which school, but what subject, and they're certified in that. And I wanted to throw out there this time that was due on November the 1st, and it was completed then. And for the first time in 6 years, it was 100% accurate on the first send through. And I appreciate the hard work there. Jennifer Wimber, Scarlett Ryan, and Brenda Considine had a lot to do with that, so I want to thank them for their work on that. And that's all I have to say.
Next item is item number 4, Dr. Wagner, overview of 2013-2014 enrollment projections and demographics. Now, I'll just preface this by saying some people think this presentation is boring, but I don't. I think it's one of the more interesting presentations you get over here. Because, you know, I'm in the nursery and I'm going to the deliveries, and it's interesting to see what your numbers look like a couple of years down the road. So,
well, it's always a pleasure to be here. And one thing I can tell you, I appreciate the comment, but I also recommend these kinds of reports to people that have insomnia. It will help me. I can guarantee you that. But there is some information here, and I want to spend just a short period of time with you on it. And we have hopefully you have access to a PowerPoint presentation. Do you have that? So we'll be right here. Okay, if we could look at page or slide 5 on this. So just the methodology and such, you hopefully can read that, and we can go on to slide 5 and look at the first chart. Basically, in this chart here, what this looks at is it looks at your past and future population. And the two places I really want you to concentrate on, look at this evening, is look at the past census in 2010. The county had 35,613 residents. Now, the Kentucky data set, first of all this demographic information basically comes from two sources, census information and the Kentucky Data Center in terms of projections. But they are projecting some growth for Clark County. By the year 2030, they're anticipating that you will have 39,423 residents in the county, which is a pretty significant growth projection. If it holds up, that will be good. On the next slide, if we can go and look at Table A, what I want to concentrate your attention on are 2 age groups. And it's kind of the second half of the table. It's the 5 to 19 age group, because that's school-age children. And the 65-plus age group. And if you'll notice that in 2010, in the census, in the 5 to 19 age group, there were 19.4% of the citizens of Clark County were school-age children. And in the 65-plus, it's 14.2%. Now, if we move down to Table 2B and look at the same category, you're going to see that by 2030, the 15 to 19 population is expected to decrease to 17.5% of the total population, but your 65-plus is going to grow pretty significantly to 22.7%. Now, the first thing is it's not unique to Clark County. That's Kentucky. Okay, that's going to be a phenomenon. So that's going to play itself out. If you add the 30 to 64 to the 65 plus, you can see that over 66% of the citizens in Clark County are going to be 30 years old plus. So what's the significance of that? The significance of that is we're going to have to work even harder with the citizens of Clark County so that to help them understand that the quality of life of the entire citizenry of Clark County is dependent on how good public schools are. Currently, rule of thumb is approximately 70% of the citizens of any given county in Kentucky don't have children or grandchildren in the public schools, or in any school for that matter. So what I'm just pointing out is that what is a difficult task will only probably increase to some extent, but there is no question that the communities where people want to locate are communities where the quality of schools are very integral part of the quality of life of that community. One other caveat is if we have questions as we move along, please ask them as you usually do, because that'll be fine with me. If we can move to the next table, please, table C. The most significant point here that I want for you to look at is just the first line, the total population. From 2000 to 2010, the total population of the county increased by 7.4%, but when we look at ages 0 to 17, it only grew by 1.8%. The rest of the table takes a look at population by different types of categories. Table D, I think the most important, from my vantage point, the most significant thing here is if you look at family households with children under 18, there was actually a 5.2% decline of households in Clark County that had children under the age of 18. Well, if you look at the very top line of Table D, the total population of the households grew by 7.4%. Table E at the bottom, significant piece here is occupied housing units increased by 9.6% from 2000 to 2010. You had an 8.1% increase in owner-occupied housing, but you had a 13% increase in renter-occupied housing. Table F. In Table F, this material comes from Kentucky Kids County information. Let's just pick a category. Let's start with children in poverty. You can see that you've had a significant increase in the number of children that are been identified as children living in poverty. The median household income, you had a fairly significant fall from 2000 to 2008, but you actually see that the median income in the county retrenched from 2008 to 2010. Children participating in the SNAP program almost doubled in the same time period. Children involved in the Women, Infants, Children's program increased substantially. The number of children in the schools that qualified to participate in the free and reduced lunch program in a 10-year period increased to 13%. And you can go on down the list. And you can say, Dr. Wagner, what's the significance of that? The significance of it is at the same time you're finding yourself with fewer and fewer resources to work with children. Children are coming to you much needier than they did 10 years ago.
And there are fewer taxpayers, right?
Well, there are fewer, unless there are fewer taxpayers, it's just that the support to schools from the federal level, the state level, particularly have lagged behind the efforts that have been made, particularly in Clark County, from the local level. So that's as much, Dr. Griffith, a piece of it has fewer taxpayers because the number of citizens in the county have continued to grow. Mm-hmm. So in theory, I'm going to assume that the number of taxpayers has probably increased too. But since a big part of local tax revenue comes from property ownership, it is a significant point that the percentage of homes that are rented, for example, or households that are in rented units as opposed to owned units did jump fairly significantly. So to your point, yes, that would have a piece of it. Okay, if we look at the next table, Table G1, we're going to get in and talk about school enrollment. Before we go there, any other questions about the demographics? Okay. The estimate or projection for enrollment in the Clark County schools that was made about this time last year was that by the end of the first month in the elementary schools you would have 2,548 students enrolled, and you actually have 2,558. So you beat the projection by 10 at the elementary school level. Now if we look at the table G2 and look at the middle schools, you're going to see the projection at Clark Middle was for 719, they had 722. Projection at Conkright was 532, and they had 518 students. At the high school, we were looking for 1,674, and they had 1,649. So the bottom line is that in the end, there were, in terms of the district projection, we had projected that from a total perspective, you would have 5,491 students, and you have 5,469 students actually enrolled. Now, But I would share with you that that's, in terms of total enrollment in students in the schools, it's about a 99.6% accuracy rate. So we're pretty close in terms of the total number across the district. And as you can see, where we missed, and you know, this is where it really gets ticklish, is making sure that they all didn't show up exactly where we thought they would. You know, so that's how come you have some shifts among the schools. The next table, Table K, will gives you a. Let's move on down to Table K. What this gives you is a 5-year look back. Now, of course, we had some centers closed and a new one open. But the bottom line here is we go down to all K-12 at the very end of the table and look at what we had, your enrollment was in 2009, 9 and 10, excuse me, 5,471, and you go across and look at what the enrollment is after the end of the first month in 2013-14, you'll see that we, in that 5-year span, had a net change of 2. So the enrollment in the district has remained pretty stable. You can look at that as kind of, you were graphing it with a line graph, up some, kind of down a little bit, but nothing huge either direction. So what that does for you is that the end result is that things pretty much in terms of student enrollment has remained fairly consistent. Now, Table L looks at a 10-year look back. And you can see in 2003 and 4, total enrollment in the district was 5,215. And in 2013-14, again, it's 5,469. So in that 10-year period, though, it shows a growth across in enrollment of 254 students. So you have had some growth when you look back 10 years. And you can see from year to year, if you look at the change in the K-12 line, you can see, for example, from 03-04 to 04-05, you took a pretty significant jump. And you did a pretty significant jump again from 04-05 to 05-06, then it began to kind of moderate. It took a pretty good dip in 9-10. But looking at it from a long view, you've had growth in the district. And that's a good thing. Now, Table M, if we can move to Table M, this looks at the live births and the number of children entering kindergarten. Now, if you look down at the birth year of 2008, state vital statistics told us that there were 451 children that were born as residents of Clark County. This fall, we had 423 5-year-olds enter kindergarten. So the percent of live births entering the Clark County Public Schools is 93.28%. And the most recent 5-year average then it becomes 92.89%, which is what we're using moving forward. And you can kind of check that if you want, and you can kind of pull back and look at the number of 5-year-olds enrolled in kindergarten, see how it matches. Now, each year, we do a trend, we do a 3, 5, and 10-year trend. And we think, Dr. Arvin, I think that the 5-year trend is going to more closely resemble what's going to happen moving forward. So if we look at the next chart, we'll look at 10 years into the future. Please understand that every step we take away from this year, the crystal ball gets a little muddier, but at least it gives you something to look at. And we're estimating that basically, if you look at the 5-year trend, you're going to begin kind of a slow decrease. Nothing too major, but you can see if it were to prove 100% accurate or close to accurate, by 2023-24, we are showing about 100 fewer students in the Clark County schools than are currently enrolled in Clark County schools. Now, Table N just simply looks at some information that's pulled from the census data and from enrollment data. For example, census data shows from the data center shows that there are estimated 6,925 through 19-year-olds in Clark County. I had 5,469 enrolled, so that's 79% of those potential folks in that age group are in the schools. And as you move across, you can see that in 16-17 it's projected to be 77.5%, and in 2021, 77.3%. Now, using the 5-year trend, what does enrollment look like at the elementary schools for next year? And that would be the table P1. And we can take a look here, and you can see the centers, you can see each of the schools listed, you can see what the projected enrollments are. So we're projecting that at the end of the first month next year, that in the elementary schools, we're expecting you to have 2,565 students. So it'll be interesting to see how close we are. That compares against the current enrollment of 2,558. So at the elementary level, we're expecting you to grow about 7 students across the district. Table P2 looks at your middle schools and high school. You can see that Clark Middle, we're anticipating 702, Conkright 531, and the high school at 1643. So that gives you the district total of 5,463, so that's a slight decrease of 6 students. Now let's look at another category of students, and that is table Q, students with disabilities. In 2009, you can see 2009-10 to 2013-14, you had overall about a 0.6% increase in disabled students, and that's very consistent with the fact that you haven't had, your enrollment is pretty flat, so you haven't had a significant variance in special needs students enrolling in the Clark County schools as compared to your total enrollment. And that just means it's very consistent in that time period. Now, table R1 gives you information that looks at the elementary, in this case it's going to look at your elementary schools. But we're looking at the number of students in both tables R1 and R2. We're looking at the percentage of students, particularly that are eligible for free lunch, because these are students that meet the Department of Education definition for at-risk students. And you can see that all of your elementary schools, across all of them, in your high school and your 2 middle schools. So the district percentage of students eligible for participate in the free lunch program is 53.6. And if you look at the next table, figure 4, what you can see here is that in 6 years, that percentage has grown pretty significantly. It's grown from 42.8% in 08-09 to 53.6% in 2013-14. So what does this, in a sense, it validates some of the earlier information we were looking at from census data, that basically the children coming to school have more needs than they did 6 years ago. They come with they just come with a set of needs. It's kind of like, one of my favorite quotes as a superintendent, I always told parents that they send us the best children in the county. But you just need to understand that it just makes your job even perhaps more difficult, because what you have to do is you're trying to meet more needs with fewer dollars. Because if we were talking about the constraints you have, you've got a good 6-year run of flat state revenues through the SEEK program, if not a slight decline. Last year we ran into federal sequestration that's probably going to continue, and my understanding is expected to budget a 10% reduction in those funds over the next 5 years for sure. So what you're faced with is how do we meet even greater increased needs of our student population with basically planning resources. So questions? See, I just totally,
Well, you were right on with the projections, so, good job.
thank you. Well, if there are no questions, then thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I do have a question. Do you have any comments on 2013 birth rates yet? Or do you not look at those until they're in the books in December?
In December.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you, Dr. Becker. Next item is the annual audit report for fiscal year 2013. Tom Sparks.
Good evening. Hopefully, each of you have before you a blue-bound document. That is the current year, June 3rd, 2013 financial statement audit. On the screen, I've tried to highlight some of the areas as I talked about in the presentation. Before I get started, I want to thank the board for allowing our firm to do the audit this year. I thank Mr. Christie and Gina and their staff for the assistance in putting up with all of our auditors as we ran through the whole building, aggravating other employees. But that's part of the auditor's job, as well as the bookkeepers out in the schools. You have 65 pages in front of you. I will not go through every page, but I will hit the highlights. And then if there's a particular item that I don't address and you have a question on, please stop me and we will go through it at that point in time. On page 2 of the audit, this is part of the auditor's opinion. I have highlighted, your turn to go to page 2, which will probably be off the page, next page over there. This is the opinion part of the auditor's report. We issued an unqualified opinion this year. That's a clean report. It means we did not find any evidences of fraud or misappropriation of any of the district's funds. So that's the cleanest report that an auditor can issue on a set of financial statements. If you'll turn to page 4, the next part of your audit, pages 4 through 8, is the MD&A. The MD&A, this is management's representation of the financial highlights of the school year. They are required to include some elements from the audited financial statements, but they also can get as creative as they want in the explanation of what they want to display. And Gina pulled this together. She did a great job in putting this together. One of the things I want to point out on page 4 is that the district is in compliance, well above the 2% minimum contingency, which is one of the buzzwords that your district wants to stay above the 2%. So for financial purposes, you're well within the 2% range. On page 6, this is a nice comparison of the audited numbers in a comparative format, 2012 to 2013. Just a couple highlights here. Current assets, there was a decrease of about $15 million between this year and last year. A lot of that was your construction funds. If you remember, you had the bond proceeds that had come in. A lot of construction costs have taken place during the year, so it makes sense that your cash would go down as the construction costs increase during the year. Coming down to your non-current assets, you had an increase of $25 million. Well, where did the cash go? It went into your property, plant, and equipment. A lot of this will be in there's on page 33. You can look at it going through. We have a detail of where this stands at this point in time. Until the buildings get completed, they stay in a construction in progress account. And once completed, then they'll move into the proper category of fixed asset. Coming down to your current liabilities, there was a decrease of about $1.8 million from the prior year. There again, this had to do with construction payables. We had a lot more construction payables last year than this year. That was the main change there. Coming down into your non-current liabilities, increase of about $6.6 million. You had a new debt, a new bond proceed that came in during the year, and that's why your long-term liabilities went up. Overall, you can see for the total net assets, you had an increase of $4.5 million. There again, the district still is very strong financially compared to the prior year. Page 7, the next page, I've just highlighted a few areas here. This is, again, a comparative of 2012 to 2013. The governmental columns, this is your general fund, building fund, everything, special revenue fund. The business type, that's going to be your food service primarily. So just looking at some highlights, you can see your local revenues, actually, and that's primarily your tax base, actually went down some between the prior year. State revenues went up a little bit, and where you had the biggest increase last year was in your federal dollars coming in to the district. Overall, if you look at the 2013-2012 total, you can see there's about a $2 million, a little less than, right around $2 million increase in total revenues. On the expense side of items, your biggest increase was instruction. You had an increase of about $1 million there, and then coming down, of course, as you keep on borrowing more money, interest expense is an item that's going to pop up. So I highlighted, you can see your interest on long-term debt had an increase of about $1.2 million. Overall, total expenses, you had $53 million last June 30, 2013, and to compare to $50 million in 2012. Any questions on either one of those financial statements? Okay. If not, if you'll turn to page 15 in your audit, this is a budgetary viewpoint of how you did general fund to actual. The variance column over on the far right hand of your things, of your this financial statement, you had a favorable variance of $8.7 million. Now, I've had other boards ask me, well, how did we miss it that bad? Well, you didn't miss it. It's just in the actual numbers, and as Gina has, or as we've gotten the financial statements at the bottom of the page, $7.6 million of this is on behalf monies. On behalf monies are monies paid at the state level for Clark County, and it is required to be put in your actual dollars. Now, KDE, I think, effective 2013-14, now wants you to start budgeting those. So in the future, you should not have as big of variances as you have here. We'll make a recommendation. This came up in another district. They had only budgeted their on-behalf revenues and forgot to budget their on-behalf expenses, which made the financials look really good until we told them they didn't have the other side of the entry on. So Gina knows that, though. So, but next year you should not have this big a variance on this report. Page 16 of your audit. Excuse me, page 17. I'm sorry. Proprietary fund. This is your food service operations. Just want to point out, as you see, you've got $1 million sitting in your food service. Your food service is very healthy compared to other districts that we audit. And because of that, I think the state has kind of looked at you and said, you start using some of that money. So cash did go down this year about $130,000 from the prior year. And I probably want you to continue doing that to eat down on that reserve. But it's a good problem to have. Total assets was $1.5 million. They're, again, very healthy in your balance sheet. On the next page, page 18, this is the revenue and expenses. Your total operating expenses, $1.2 million. This is down about $78,000 from the prior year, and your operating expenses, materials and supplies, $2.2 million. That's up $246,000 from the prior year. So overall, if you go down to the bottom of the page, you see a change in net assets. You actually had a deficit in operations with your food service of $112,000 to 58. So there again, the net assets at the end of the year, $1.4 million, very healthy in your food service. Page 20, this is your agency funds. The agency funds is basically the activity funds. This will ebb and flow between years, I mean, just depending on how each school does. We do have a breakout of the activity funds on page 46, and we'll look at it in a minute, but I just want to point out to you, see this in your agency funds does mean activity funds. The next part of your audit is the notes to the financial statements. And that will run from page 21 to page 43. There are some notes I'd like to bring to the attention of the board. If you turn to page 31. Note 3. Cash and cash equivalents. One of the procedures that we're required to do each year is to verify that all the district's funds are either covered by FDIC insurance or this proper security has been pledged by a bank to cover all of your funds. I know last year we had a problem, we had a finding in this regard. Thankfully this year that has been taken, has been taken care of, and all of your funds that you have been covered by investments pledged by your bank. So that's good. Page 33, note 4. We talked about earlier about your capital asset. Just want to point out the highlight there, construction in progress. $26 million is sitting in that stage until the final renovations. I think you have the high school going on, Justice Elementary School going on, and then the renovations, I think, Conrad is going on right now. So until those get completed, they'll stay in that category and then get moved down on completion. Page 35, note 5, we talked about your debt. Two new issues that you had this year had some refunding of $268,000, and then you had your 2012 of bonds of $10,800,000. So those have come on your books for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2013. You're scrolling down the page. Just want to point out the Kentucky School Facility Construction Committee. These are participation agreements. And for any new board members or don't remember, the General Assembly makes a biannual agreement to fund this component. But if for some reason they did not, the district will still be responsible for this component of your liability. So it is reflected in two components, but if something was to happen, the district would have to pay the whole amount. Now, that's never happened, but it is required to be presented in this statement. Continue on page 36 of note 5. This is new to your financial statements this year. I know you probably know about the Kisbet situation and the liability. We were required because at this point in time, it's a definite that something is going to have to be paid. The best projection that we had for your financial statements was it's going to be $286,000. Now, I think it's just come to our attention that there's been some new changes with that, and the positive note is I think that number is going to come down some. We did reflect it as a long-term liability because the projection was it was going to be after June 30th, 2014 before anything gets done on this. And I've heard there's maybe some various options, the way they may let districts pay this, maybe over time without interest, which would be very positive if that was to happen. But there again, no final numbers, but this is something that's going to have to be dealt with each district. So it is included in your financial statements as a long-term liability. Page 43, note 17. Just want to point out that as of year end, there were outstanding construction contract commitments of $14,548,000. There again, that's all the three buildings that we talked about earlier. Any questions up to this point? Okay. The next part of your audit is the supplemental financials or supplemental schedules to your audit. The one on page 46, I'd like to bring your attention. We talked about the activity funds. This is a breakout of your activity funds, where they came in for the first of the year. The total was like $437,000 at the first of the year. The end of the year is they had a cash balance of $364,000. So there again, you're going to have an ebb and flow every year with your activity funds, depending on how the districts perform or how the club may do. On page 4748 is the high school and the breakout of each of the high school's activity funds. One of the things that we're required to check for each year is to verify that none of the clubs ended with a negative or a deficit balance. And as you can see, none of your schools had a deficit balance in their activity funds. The next page I'd like to bring your attention to is on page 57. As one of our requirements to our auditor's contract, we're required to check for some compliance with state laws and regulations. And we did have one finding this year with the state law compliance. And you had a lot of turnover at Central Office, as you all know. And Gina came in late in the school year, and so I'm not sure why it happened, but Gina's on top of it for the current year. But last year, the district did not publish the tax rates, and it also did not publish the individual payee lists. Now, that can be done one of two ways. Most districts now just put a little blurb in the paper about the vendor list. They used to, if you remember years ago, the vendor list used to be huge, you take a lot of pages. But now you can put it in the paper that's see the website and put it on the website there, and that meets the KRS. And then, of course, you are required to publish the tax rates. So that was the only state level finding that we had for this year. On page 58, we did have, last year, all of your funds were not collateralized, but this year that's been taken care of. So we did correct last year's on page 60, and going through page 65, when we perform our audit, if we come across things that we think there could be areas of improvement or areas that if left, not left without any attention taken toward it, it could become a bigger problem. That's really what we call management comments. So at the board level, we had three areas. One that were cash disbursements. We had several issues with purchase orders, and this is not uncommon. We find purchase order issues at most of the districts that we deal with, but purchase orders are required, and they have to be properly dated, properly approved. So we have gone through this with Gina, and I think she's going to take some steps maybe to shore these out so we don't have this in the future audits. Capital assets. We found that a physical inventory had not been taken of your physical assets, and there again, that's required to be done. And there again, I think the name of this was technology. And there again, you had some turnover there and change technology people last year. With Title I, there again, you had some changes in personnel there too. But Title I was a program that we audited, and we found that the required documents had been filed. However, the supporting documentation for those documents could not be found. And when we think it's probably when the turnover took place, either the person took them with them or destroyed it or whatever, but they weren't on site. So, there again, that may be a situation where there's some new procedures put in place that, when no matter if somebody comes or goes, there's a procedure for maintaining the records for the programs. It must be taken. But we did feel like, say, everything had been done, and we could not find some documentation to support what had been filed. Page 61, starting with the high school. We had one finding at the high school, just that was the ticket sale procedures. There was not some explanations made as far as why there was missing signatures. There again, ticket sales are very important, and there's where you could have more fraud as far as money's not coming back. So you really need to document why there's some discrepancies. Coming down to the middle school, we had an issue with some accounts payable was not listed on the year-end financial report. We find this a lot because most of the financial reports are done on a cash basis, and then the month of June, you need to put those outstanding invoices in the financial report and allow your books users to get. So that's kind of common, but it is required to be on the report. A little bigger issue is the timeliness of bank reconciliation. Those bank reconciliations need to be done timely. And we found 2 cases where they were not done in a timely fashion. If you don't get it reconciled, you don't know what your proper balance is and your cash, so it's very important that gets done. Concrete, do you have any material items of concrete or Justice or Strode or Trap? Pilot View, there was a transfer form that was not properly completed. There again, both the activity fund sponsors need to sign off on that transfer form so that, bookkeeper can't just move monies without proper approval from the sponsor. Providence, nothing at Providence. At Hannah McClure, we had an issue with the fundraiser form was not properly completed, and so that needed to be dealt with. Nothing at Fannie Bush, Shear, or Central. We are required to put a status of prior year comments if they've been completed. At George Rogers Clark, what we found last year, we didn't have any similar findings this year. That's good. Unfortunately, we did have some issues, the same similar finding on the accounts payable. Cash disbursements, we did not have the same problem. Concrete had corrected their issues from prior years. Central corrected their issues. Pilot View did have the same issue with the transfer form. And then the Pilot View did correct the issue relating to their accounts payable. So, or no, they had a deficit balance. Excuse me, a deficit balance. And this year they did not. So they did a better job staying on top of it. We did not have any findings relating to any of your federal programs that we tested this year. So that's really one of those titled things. Any questions on your financial audit for June 30, 2013?
Questions, Mr. Sparks? Thank you.
If you do have any questions, feel free to email me, call me.
All right, next up is item number 6, third month attendance update. Mr. Holland.
These are our third month attendance. We have, of the 11 schools, K through 12, you take attendance daily. You take out Justice, which of course is setting its bar currently. We have, instead of 11 schools, we would have 10. 8 of those 10 schools increased their third month attendance from 2012-13 to 2013-14. So kudos to the schools for that. We had Providence keeps the flag and banner for the second consecutive month. So congratulations to Providence. The percentage is 97%, 97.03. We had an increase in attendance for the third consecutive month. All 3 months that we've been in school, we've had an increase in attendance. And when we last met, we set the attendance incentive. And with that, what we just did was take that day's percentage that the schools had, thinking that would be fair. All they had to do was maintain or increase. 4 of our schools, congratulations to them, met their third month goal, so they received their attendance incentive. Those schools being GRC, Shear, Trapp, and Justice. Any questions?
Thank you. It'll be a challenge to keep this up. There's an increasing interest in the community, as I'm sure Dr. Griffin can attest to.
Thank you.
We'll do our best.
Thank you.
All right, item number 7, the Environmental Learning Resolution, is me. You can see as it comes up on the screen. Oh, you know, this started with KSBA or the superintendent's group, or I don't know who started it. Okay, all right. ball's rolling down the hill, though, and basically the essence of this resolution is it's basically challenging the state legislature, which will meet next year and do its budget for the next 2 years, to adequately fund SEEK and to make sure that public schools are adequately funded. So I think that's the bottom line. We've had increasing requirements. We've got requirements of Senate Bill 1. Pretty much every board meeting, we heard about something else we were supposed to be doing. There's some other mandate. Maybe these mandates have been unfunded. We're having to do a lot more with a lot less, and this is pretty much just a plea to the legislature. Strongly worded plea, but a plea to the legislature to please, fund our districts appropriately. So I'll go ahead and read that.
Oh, no, I was just going to add that the other districts around the state of Kentucky are also doing this. This isn't something we just made up. This is something that we're actually joining the bandwagon at this point.
So this resolution reads as follows: to all to whom this present shall come, whereas an excellent public school system is vital to the quality of life in the Commonwealth of Kentucky and fundamental to preserving a strong democratic society both now and in the future. Whereas upon passage of Senate Bill 1, the members of the Kentucky legislature pledged to ensure that Kentucky students would have the tools they would need to compete in a global society. Whereas the mandates of unbridled learning continue to increase, putting additional stress and responsibilities on teachers and administrators, working to ensure that students continue on their path to becoming college and career ready. Whereas the Kentucky legislature has broken its pledge to Kentucky students, failing to fund the mandates of unbridled learning, thereby putting at risk the law's goals and jeopardizing the future of our students. Whereas the failure of the legislature has caused the Clark County School District and districts across the Commonwealth to make significant cuts to their budgets and personnel, calling school boards to increase property taxes in order that districts may continue to operate and serve the students who are the future of the Commonwealth. And therefore, we, the members of the Clark County Board of Education, do challenge members of the Kentucky State House of Representatives and the Kentucky State Senate to take action, putting the students of the Commonwealth of Kentucky first, reinvesting in their future, and fully funding the mandates of unbridled learning to ensure that Kentucky's public education system can offer students the path to college and career readiness. Anything to add or any suggestions?
I just had a question on how does our wording compare to other districts?
I think it's pretty exact.
It's exact. I was going to say, I was trying to look
The
at
ground
the
police took care of part of it.
Okay, I was going to say.
But we
it's
still need
almost
to,
the
we need to
same.
take off one of the occurrences of "in" on the first line of the first paragraph. In right there at the
Yes, it's
end.
double D. So, any other corrections? If not, a motion is in order to approve the unbridled learning resolution.
Make a motion to approve the unbridled learning resolution.
Motion by Mr. McGowan,
Second.
second by Dr. Griffith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Can we discuss just a second
Okay.
first? I mean, I have no problem with the resolution, but I think it would also be good if we as board members, in addition to sending this resolution, this is allegedly going to the entire General Assembly. We really need to keep up a relationship individually with our local representatives, our state senator, our state representative. I don't think the resolution is fine, but it is not a substitute for our advocacy on behalf of our students with our local representative and the senator. So I just encourage the board members to do that.
Let's see. We had a motion by Mr. McGowan and a second by Dr. Griffith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next item is number 8, KEAP adequacy study. Mr. Christie. This dovetails with the previous
Yeah,
item.
this does kind of dovetail with that, and where the previous item was a resolution to present, this is a little more concrete. This also is something that is being done across the state and in most districts at this point. Last time I looked, they were at 60-some% completed already, and out of those, they've only had 2 districts in the state that has not joined this for whatever the reasons may be. So at this point, and every day I get emails, there are more and more as days go by and board meetings happen, there's more and more. This was spearheaded primarily by Tom Shelton, and on the same note that Judy was talking about, I did meet with their senator and legislator last week, and one of the things that they talked about that needed to be done was speaking with one voice in the schools. Instead of every district coming up with all the things, speaking with one voice. This is something that's aimed at directing that one voice. It's basically now hiring a firm, and I think this firm is the actual firm, I believe, that actually wrote the original SEEK funding formula. so they have a great understanding of how.
Is this the California firm?
And from what Mr. Shelton said, they were, and I'm not on that page right now.
Yeah, North Hollywood,
Yeah.
California.
They have an understanding of the funding formula. And what this is doing is asking them to, as we go to the legislators, to provide them with concrete evidence that we're not being supported in these mandates and that they are in fact unfunded. So they're asking each district to join together to help pay for this study to be done, to be presented. And it's at 25 cents per student. So I think I put it in, I'm not on the thing, I'm not sure exactly what that 1,200, 1,100, 1,200, I can't remember now exactly what it was, the exact figure was. Let's go back.
Got what, 5,500?
Has this firm already been hired? I mean, does this
Today,
group already have
I got an
contract
email
with them?
from, a mass email from Tom Shelton out there, all the superintendents, that they have reached more than the amount needed, so they have already gone ahead and acquired this firm. Now, there's some other organizations you read in this, KEA, KSBA, KASA, some of the other organizations are also going to be participating in the study. Yeah, so, and I'm not
You
sure.
mean contributing money towards
Yeah.
the study?
Yes.
So like they asked for a voluntary contribution of approximately this amount.
And that's what the 25 cents per ADA student,
Mhm.
that, if they calculated the state students, that would be enough to pay that. So, we could go less. Everybody's gone, that I'm aware of, has gone the 25 cents per student on that basis. I'm not sure they have even released the names of the two districts that couldn't do it. So at this point, there are only two boards that have turned it down.
Quick calculation, figuring about 5,500 which is about where we're at. Thank you, Dr. Bob. That was right on the top of my head then. That would be $1,375 in New York contribution to this at that rate.
Is this something that needs board action or just?
Yes, because we're spending.
Yes,
Thank
because
you.
we're
We're spending
money,
money.
I think this group is successful in getting some concrete evidence presented to the state legislature, and the money is there. I think it will certainly help our cause in the long run. The continued internalization of SEEK funding is, I mean, every time Dr. Bob is here, I ask him what's going to happen with SEEK funding, because it's a question that's always on your mind. So, and I think anything we can do to secure that as in any way, shape, or form, in any fashion, would be something beneficial. Other questions? If not, motion is in order to, I would say, let's face the motion to allot $1,375 for the KEAT adequacy study, if that's okay with everyone.
Is that the 25? Is that?
That's 25 cents per KEA.
I'll make a motion to allot $1,375.
A motion by Mr. McGowan,
Second.
second by Dr. Griffith. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 9, overview of fall district map results. Ms. Considine.
Good evening. I'm here before you tonight to share with you some fall map data. You have a copy of the map brochure, and the reason I included that is because we are working on new map cut scores that are based on the Kentucky Linking Study that was completed in January of 2013. Last year, we did not change our map data. We went with the old numbers, the old cut scores. But when summer rolled around, we updated the brochure so that we would be basing all of our cut scores on the linking study. And so I just wanted to give you a copy of that. That is on the district website. We did not mass produce it this year. We did have schools put it on their website, and we made copies to have in the office and for teachers. So does anybody have any questions regarding the brochure before I go into our data?
How significant were the changes from previous to this?
Significant. Mhm. And what we found is that in the past, our cut scores were a little too relaxed when we wanted to compare them with the new K-Prep. And students that were maybe scoring proficient in MAP based on the old cut scores were not showing up proficient. And I think NWEA realized that that was an issue, and so that's why they worked on developing and working with KDE to get that out as soon as possible. But for the sake of parents not getting mixed, in January switching it, we continued, even though the principals knew what the new cut scores were and they could kind of get a prediction based on spring math. So anyhow, what we did was, not only did our cut scores change, but MAP assessment itself changed. They updated it, they added new questions based on more Common Core, a lot of hot links. Students were able to move test items within, the window, and have hot links where they could actually plug in something. They had a graphing calculator that was never given before, so that was another big change when we administered in the fall. And so with those two changes, plus one other change, we did not administer any accommodations or modifications for our students with disabilities. We wanted to receive raw data. If this is truly a universal screener, and that's how we're using it, even though we can use it to do some predictions for K-Prep, but we really want to use it as raw data for our universal screener. So our students with disabilities did not have accommodations and modifications for the first time. After the window closes at the school level, they can go back and they can take MAP without goals with accommodations, so we can kind of compare raw data and what our accommodations and modifications are to help our students perform. So with all of that, if you'll go to the beautiful rainbow document that you're used to seeing, we are starting new. We are looking at fall 2013, and we're giving you brand new data, and it is very hard to compare it with the old data. We could, but you would have to always keep in your mind that spring of 2013, we were basing it on old cut scores and old, the regular questions, and students that had modifications and accommodations. So what you're seeing tonight is just our raw data, and it's second grade through 8th grade. MAP right now has, Ks and 1s are taking an assessment that is audio, and so they are not linking that with the K-Prep. So we are not going to report that to the board just because they haven't developed Kentucky cut scores or normative data for that. So schools are using it to determine who needs RTI, who needs interventions, but as far as a reporting document, we will not include them.
But we can be made aware that our kindergartners, our first graders are on track.
Yes, and that's at the school level. And last year we based it on grade level.
Mm-hmm.
This year we're basing it on proficiency, based on the assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really kind of tricky when they get to Ks and 1s. We can look at it, but it will be still based on grade level,
Mm-hmm.
not proficiency, because it's going to be based on the old model.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So we could bring that back to you. Kindergarten will not test until after Christmas, and first grade was very late testing. It was almost the end of September. So we will not test first grade again until January. but we could bring that to you at a later date.
Yes, we would
Also,
like to see that.
okay, we will remove, if it's all right with you all, I would like to remove the winter column because we do not have linking data for those, because with NWA and KDE, they did not want schools to make predictions based on the winter data, because what you're looking for is student growth. You're not looking for a proficiency prediction. So, I mean, we could report it, but it will be based on the old model. There are no cut scores for winter. So that,
So
you're
they
going
will be
from-
taking a winter
Yes.
test.
But it's only to look at students individually to
Right.
see where they are they reaching their growth goal?
Mhm.
So they don't want you to really do a grade level prediction for proficiency at that point.
And that's something that the state is wanting to see the report for, but so what you're saying is they don't want to see that.
Well, NWA and KE are not working together to do a winter cut
Right.
score.
Right.
They're just wanting students to work on their growth goal and not do a prediction
Mhm.
based on K-Prep.
Mhm.
So we can leave it in, but we would not have cut scores for that. We could go and try to think, well, halfway between what is predicted in fall to spring, but there's no linking study, so there's really no validity or reliability based on it. It would just be us generating those numbers.
Yeah, but it would be a measure that we could look at and say, yeah, are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? When we're halfway through the year, are we?
Which is okay, because I mean, it's the
Which
same
is
with the
okay.
K through 1, we want to see what
Yes,
the
you want to see
progress is.
those.
So,
But they will just be arbitrary numbers that at a district we would determine
Mhm.
if that's what you like.
So how did the principals feel about the data so far, how the testing went?
It's a little bit lower than what we anticipated. We'd like
It
to
sounds
see a
like the
little bit.
criteria were significantly more rigorous.
It was.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the old from the spring results, you know, you can't, I was looking to see if there was any correlation at all, there's really not, so.
No. It's just like going from KCCT to K-Prep.
Right.
In the education world, we're used to this. We're used to starting over. The good thing is, personally feel like we're more on track for a prediction of how our students will perform on the state test. In the past, we kind of thought we were on track, and we would like to use those numbers, but when schools actually, or teachers look at their individual class list, and they look at the RTI, the RIT, excuse me, it's another acronym. If they look at the RIT score, they will give them a prediction if they're novice, apprentice, proficient, or distinguished, which is nice because it kind of gives them an idea, especially if those testing, 3 through 8, it kind of gives them a prediction. Any questions?
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Next item is PGES implementation plan.
Yes. And tonight, I have the implementation plan, but first I thought maybe it would be helpful if I just kind of did a little overview. And I know it's been a long meeting already. So I'm going to try to go through this. I'm going to read a lot of it because I want to be very accurate. This is an overview that I promised you that I would bring to you sooner. I think in June we may have talked about it. I thought I'd come back. And before I give you an implementation plan, you kind of need to know what we're doing. So, effective teaching and school leadership depend on clear standards and expectations. We want to be able to give feedback and have the right tools so that every child... Hold on, Mr. Payson, you're a little too fast for me. So that we have the right tools, resources, and support for professional growth and continuous improvement. We want all of our students to be taught by an effective teacher and for every school to be led by an effective leader. Okay. Thanks. Kentucky Board of Education outlined a strategic plan for our schools, and they prioritized it. They set it up in next generation learners, next generation professionals, next generation support systems, and next generation schools and districts. And you're probably familiar with next generation learners. That is your school report card. PGES is going to fall under next generation professionals. And why did all this come to be? Why did they decide to come up with this new strategic plan and priorities? Well, we decided, or not we, but the Department of Education is developing an evaluation system that goes beyond the No Child Left Behind minimum of highly qualified teacher standards. And that it all came about because we felt like that we needed to provide more meaningful information about the effectiveness of the teachers and principals, and it could be used to inform professional development and improve practice. So they wrote a waiver to develop, adopt, pilot, and implement a rigorous evaluation and support system for teachers. The ESEA waiver would be used for continued improvement, to differentiate performance, so that teachers would be have 3 different levels of performance. Then we're going to use multiple valid measures. We're going to evaluate regularly. We're going to provide feedback, and it will be used to inform personnel decisions. Now, this is a nice little 5-minute video, but we're not going to watch it tonight. If you want to watch it at home, it is a YouTube video. Dr. Cantrell is addressing the House of Representatives Subcommittee on Early Childhood. And I'm going to have to do a few minutes because I'm nervous, right? I'm going to have to do like my grandmother and check them to sleep, I guess. All right. Let's go to the next one. The MET study. And this is where it all came to be. And Bill and Melinda Gates are responsible for the MET study, which is the measures of effective teaching. I'm going to get it out there. And so this is what PGS was built around. And I'm not going to go into all of those cyclical features. Let's go to the next one. This is how we determined to build our multiple measures for the new effectiveness system. And as of this year, we're piloting at the district level and the state level these 6 proposed multiple measures. Now, you notice I said proposed because it's when you're piloting, some things may change. But as of right now, our effectiveness system is going to be built on observation by principal, peer observation by colleagues, the professional growth plan of self-reflection, student voice, and the student growth piece. And we're going to kind of go into those real quick. The next slide. There's your explanation of what the observation is going to be. That's observable behaviors, and those will be recorded by the principal. Peer observation is getting supportive and constructive feedback, formative purposes from their colleagues. Self-reflection is where the teacher is going to self-examine on a regular basis to help improve their instructional practice. Professional growth is it's the bottom line, because if you have increased effectiveness, then that is directly linked to student learning. Student voice is where they will survey the students, and they will provide some data on your teacher that focuses on the learning environment and the expectations. And last but not least, student growth, and that is the quantitative measure of impact. That's the ultimate goal. Are our students learning based on the effectiveness of the teachers? All right, Justin, next, please. All this was built on Charlotte Danielson's framework, and if you've seen the framework for teaching, it is 5 domains, and that's what we're looking for effectiveness. The first one is planning and preparation. No, go back. The second one is classroom environment. The third one is instruction. The fourth one is your professional responsibilities, and then the fifth one is student growth. All right, now we're ready to rock. The observation process. I'm going to kind of break those down a little bit. This is where the principal or supervisor would observe the teacher, collect the evidence, provide documentation and feedback, and talk about how effective it was so that the teacher would be able to discuss and improve their instruction. Peer, which is going to be more formative, is a collaborative piece. And they're going to come in, they're going to collect data and provide feedback. It will not be part of the summative. Okay. Next. The self-reflection and growth that will be done by the teacher is very important. And it's going to be ongoing. That self-reflection, they're going to look at it at each observation window to see how are they growing professionally. And they will use that self-reflection to write their professional growth plan. Now, we've been writing professional growth plans forever. Every year, we would write it in the fall, and at the end of the year, you would look to see if you had accomplished it. Well, now they're wanting them, in order to be effective, to address that professional growth plan as the year is going by. And self-reflect. Where am I? Am I growing? What do I need to help myself reach and obtain that goal? All right. Next is how they're all interconnected. First, they're going to do a self-reflection. They're going to kind of establish some priority growth needs. Then they're going to look at those growth needs to write their PGP, their professional growth plan. Then they're going to continue to reflect. It's going to be an ongoing process to see if they're reaching that goal. And then last but not least, they'll have a summative where they will evaluate how they did in obtaining your professional growth goal for the year. All right, next, student voice. These are called the 7 C's, and this is where the students will go in and provide feedback for their teacher. You have caring, captivating, conferring, controlling, clarifying, challenging, consolidating.
I have a question.
I do too.
Yeah, and I've seen different 7 C's, and I don't see where the communication part is in there. Is that supposed to be under the captivating, or is that with the conferring, or?
Well, I'm not sure. Let me give you an example from each one. Let me see if you can figure that out.
Yeah.
For caring, the teacher in this class encourages me to do my best. Okay. For captivating, it may be the class keeps my attention. I don't get bored. For conferring, my teacher gives us time to explain our ideas. Controlling, which would be like behavior, our class stays busy and it doesn't waste time. For clarifying, when I am confused, my teacher knows how to help me understand. For challenging, my teacher wants us to use our thinking skills, not just memorize things. And for consolidating, an example would be my teacher takes the time to summarize what we learned each day.
Doing that, communication's embedded in each of those.
Yeah.
So are you saying like how the teacher communicates to the student?
Well, communication is a two-way street. But, if students don't feel like they're being respected and heard, they're turning you off.
Yes.
Oh, I'm out of here. I'm done for the year.
And I think that's going to show up.
Okay.
I
I mean, I know that, when I've done other orientations to this, it seems like there was something in there where the communication came in. So.
But how does this actually happen?
I'm sorry.
How does the student voice part actually happen? Does the teacher sit down with a first grade student and
Well,
a first
right
grade
now,
student?
it's only 3 through 12.
Okay.
They
But
have
even a
not
third grade
developed
student.
K1 and 2 yet. And they're gonna have to, because it is part of every teacher's.
Yeah, so how do
session.
you implement, even at the pilot level, how do you do that part?
I'm not sure, because we have some early year teachers that are piloting this year. So I'm hoping that, and it's not till March, so, let's give Katie a little bit of credit. Maybe they're going to roll it out before then. But last year, we field tested in an intermediate grade.
Right.
And so we were able to use the upper elementary student voice, so I didn't worry about it at that point. They keep telling us it's coming.
Are they using the scales, on a scale of 1 to 5, how how much do I think my teacher cared about? Because that's what I've seen in the past, and then they have the scale, and then below it, they're allowed to write comments, and then the scale.
No, there is no
and so-
comments.
No comments. So how do they explain some of the things that they?
Right now, it's just being collected as kind of I want to say like a multiple choice type question.
Well, the ones that I've seen in the past, the comments were very important to that
Right,
process.
because then it would give you some insight as to why they chose a particular answer. Well, no, you know, as I said, these are proposed measures as of right now.
And I guess, Clark County, we could do things above and beyond what the minimum requirement was if we needed,
Yes.
when it comes to time.
But now, the state is collecting this data.
Right.
And it has to be done electronically with the teacher not in the room. So,
Right.
I mean, we have certain guidelines of how it takes place. Last year, we did it in one classroom. This year, we'll be doing it in multiple classrooms. So, we're rolling it up. We'll see how it plays out. But that is some very good information for me to take back and email PTES. They have a hotline. You get to email them all kinds of stuff, and then they look at it and begin to address it. Right now, no one's thinking student voice, I'll just be honest, because it's not till March. And in the scheme of things, we're kind of going day at a time. But then as we get closer, what are we going to do for someone who's piloting, but they are a first grade teacher?
Yes.
How are we going to collect student voice?
And, in the final analysis, when this entire process has the end result of a combined evaluation for a teacher, then that component is a rather significant portion of it.
As of right now, we don't know exactly how much is going to play into it. That's one thing that we've asked for is with our accountability, when we see a pie, the pie,
Yes.
we can know that, this much is, in elementary, student growth is 40%. Okay, where is student voice?
So we don't have any percentages for any of the different
As of
components
right
that
now,
go into
we do
it.
not.
Flying the plane as we build.
Yes, and some days I feel like I don't have a parachute. So, okay, let's go to the next one. Any more questions about student voice before we move on? Because then we're going to really muddy the water with student growth measures. And this is going to apply to all teachers. Now, of course, for grades 4 through 8, we're going to receive those student growth percentiles based on K-Prep for reading and math. So they can use those percentiles to help write their student growth plan. But what about teachers that are in the non-tested areas? They're going to write a student growth goal based on what they feel something, maybe their class is not performing well, and it's going to be a piece of content that's going to kind of thread its way through the year, and they're going to want to see their class grow as a class, and so therefore they could write a student growth goal. Those are very tough for teachers to write. I will tell you, we're working on that here at the district level because they have to be smart, they have to be measurable, and it's really hard to pick one content area and how are you going to measure that? And so for elementary, we've been talking that we would use math, and we would look at either a reading or a math strand and look at the beginning of the graph and see what was an area that your class maybe were a little bit lower in, and that would be a student growth goal.
Are the teachers, schooled in the Plan, Do, Study, Act kind of way of assessing what they're doing? I mean, could that be something that they could use to help them develop what they're going to measure?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Plan, Do, Study. What did you say, Plan?
Plan, Do, Study, Act. I forget the official name for that process, but you make a plan, you do the
study
plan
it.
for a while,
Right.
then you study it, you collect your data, and then you look back at it and say, what did we
Did it
learn,
work?
and
Yeah.
what do we need to do next, kind of thing.
Well, I know that right now, we know we're in the pilot.
Mhm.
And so we're rolling it out at such a very small level, at our district level.
Mhm.
I know other districts are going in full force, and so we're getting a lot of feedback. And student growth is something that everybody is struggling with. As a teacher, it's hard to say, I'm just going to focus on this one thing, and then at the end of the year, I'm going to measure it. Because you want to focus on reading and math, and if you're elementary, you focus on everything. Now, it's a little bit easier when you get to middle school and high school because you are content specific. So it's going to be a little bit easier for that. Any questions about the student growth piece? All right, then that takes us to the timeline, and I put this in here just so you could kind of see. Last year, we were part of the 50 districts that field tested. They gave lots of feedback, was collected. I really don't know, nothing has really changed. From what we tested last year, field tested, it didn't change. We're in a statewide pilot. We're collecting data again this year, and by the end of the year, they're going to finalize everything, and they're going to come up with a KDE summative model for us. We're hoping by June, which would be nice. For 2014, we're going to do statewide implementation, but it will be without consequences. And so that's where it gets a little tricky. I met yesterday with our evaluation committee, and we discussed what we could do, possibly looking at keeping our summative at the district level, going ahead and using the KDE model, but keeping our summative. So that would be something that we will be bringing back to you for you to approve probably before June.
I was thinking about this some after our conversation yesterday, Brenda. What do we run into if we're using basically two different instruments, especially if one of those instruments is used to make personnel decisions and the other one isn't? What are some legal things that might come into play there? You know, if you're two teachers and if Beth is getting evaluated using the PGES, I'm getting evaluated using the summative in existence that's really not in existence since we haven't passed it yet. And then a personnel decision is made, an unfavorable personnel decision is made by the person who's being evaluated on the summative,
Right.
but that same criteria cannot be applied to the person who's being evaluated under PGES.
Exactly.
I can see a real...
Yes, you would have to, your PGS, what we're hoping is they'll develop a summative model,
Okay.
but you're still not going to be able to use it in 14-15 to make personnel decisions.
Okay. So,
PGES can be data.
It can be data to make you, to determine, you can use the PGES evaluation process to
okay.
get to your summative, but your summative
Okay.
is going to have to be based on district criteria
Okay.
for just next year. And so we talked about working on dual models yesterday, and everybody kind of understands where we're going with it. What we would like to do is streamline it so that you're not really working from two evaluation models, but that you would really implement PGES, but you are still going to have to do a district summative legally, I think.
And having all the details on PGES would be nice, right?
Yes. And so lots of questions.
Yeah.
Lots of questions. And then the next year, we won't have that issue because it will be full implementation. We can use it for personnel decisions, and it's going to be part of that accountability. So, as effective teachers and effective principals will play into our accountability. So the last one we had was kind of letting you see what was expected this year as we are piloting, and Concrete is our official pilot school, meaning that they have an English language arts, a math, students with disabilities staff member, and then two non-assessed. We have science and social studies. And then the principal is participating in the principal PGES, which we won't even go there because it is really wide open.
And then there's superintendent.
Yes, superintendent.
Next is four, that's right, we know that's coming.
Then that's 10. Be a four
The
list.
next document, and I'm not going to go through this, but I did want to share with you, and I'm going to be sharing it with administrators. It is our implementation plan. It's how we are rolling this out and what we've done so far, so you can kind of see. Right now, the pilot principals hear from me quite a bit. The non-pilot principals in January we're going to start rolling it out with them. You try not to roll it out with everybody. You want to focus on your pilot group, kind of get them in, experience it, and then they can get the non-pilot principals all the ins and outs, because we've moved along quite rapidly. I can't believe it's November, to be honest. And this will be a living document. This will change quite a bit as we add more. As we see our needs, maybe we need to look at how we're going to roll it out to all teachers. So,
Well,
it's gonna be a
I
big
guess
task.
one of the things that they brought up in the training was, this is all fine and well, but what they brought up was that how are you going to pay for this?
Well, yeah,
Because it's not, it's the hidden cost that people don't necessarily see out there in the community is that when you sit down and do these evaluations with the teachers are not in the classroom teaching. You have to be paying somebody to have that teacher not in the classroom, have a substitute, or somebody's having to take their classroom. Likewise, when the teachers are doing the peer review, they're observing another teacher, they're not in their classroom teaching. And so that was, one of the things that was brought up with the first district that did this, and it was like...
Well, and just think about teacher training, teacher rollout.
Right, yeah.
A huge expense, because unless it becomes part of every school's professional development plan, the district cannot really mandate. We have one day at the district level. So it's quite costly. But I think we'll see good results from it. I'm going to be very positive. Any more questions?
No. Would you like a brief break?
No, well, it's actually not going to be me. It's going to be
Chris,
Christy.
okay.
That's all right. I'll take it over.
Hello, I'm here to talk to you about our briefing packet for our program review. I tried to take all the slides and put them into two for each category with the state, district information. If you want to skip to table 1, I think it's on page 4. You'll see arts and humanities. You'll see our elementary versus the state, middle and high, and on table 2, you will see the individual components that make
Back up a little
up.
bit and just let us know what program review is.
Sure.
I know it's part of
I'm
unbridled
sorry.
learning and part of accountability, but if you can just give us a real brief overview.
The review, the process is an ongoing year-round. You have a committee that will take pieces of your program review for your school, and we are hoping this year to open it up wider. Instead of like a writing teacher, we'll take the writing component and kind of see what the school's doing, but they will get into a group effort and look at all writing across the content, the contents in the school. So you will have science teachers not in isolation, or PE teachers. Everybody in the school makes it part of their own. And this is a process that was pilot in 2012, and then it went into our first accountability, and it was just rolled out October the 31st. At the end of this month, they will combine the 2 scores and give us an official score for the unbridled learning, and then the program review will be combined for a score that we don't know yet. Does that help, or did I just...
And the program reviews are in the areas that are not tested, correct?
Well, with writing, though, we still have the on-demand.
But it's a different, this writing is not based on on-demand, though, is it the one in the program review?
The process itself is what your school is implementing. How are you addressing the standards within arts and humanities? So you're scoring yourself. You're looking at your school as a whole, and it has several questions. I think arts and humanities might be 15 to 18 different questions. And that group will look and see how your school is doing. What are your programs like? Does that help?
Yes.
If you'll look at Table 2, you'll see that there are 4 categories. You will grade yourself, and you can see what Clark County Elementary did compared to the state as a whole, and then you'll see our 2 middle schools combined, and then, of course, our high school. In asking about arts and humanities with the principals, I sent an email out asking, what are you doing in your schools? And a lot of them, your social studies teachers pick up a lot, your art, your PE, your music. So it is a collaborative effort for the whole school, not just individual teachers. May I move on to number 3?
Sure.
Practical living. You'll see the elementary versus the state in Table 3. Table 4, once again, you see it broken down into the 4 components and how we scored ourselves. Miss Brenda and I went to a meeting just last week, and they were talking about how hard we are when we score ourselves, versus if someone else had come in to look at our programs that we have. Any questions on practical living programs? Okay, we have writing next. And once again, it's the same
Wait,
format.
practical living,
Yes, ma'am.
is this table 3 or 4?
Table 3 and 4 are
Yes.
practical living. and
Okay, table 4, professional development and support services, .89, that's in the non-existent category based on the 0 to 3 being non-existent. So is this saying that we don't have professional development and support services, that we basically have nothing at the high school level in practical living and career studies, or am I misinterpreting that?
Just using what they scored themselves on for practical living. I have theirs in front of me. They can, of course, they do themselves, or score themselves in the 4 different categories. When you look at professional development, let's see if I can find it. At that particular time, the teachers that looked at this document scored themselves on the first 4 questions: needs improvement, limited or no implementation. That question was answered, teachers do not have access to or have limited writing professional development opportunities. That is why they ranked themselves as a 0.
That's for practical living?
That was for practical living under professional development. When you move on, let me see, that was 4 questions. The next page, there's 5 questions. They scored 3 needs improvement and 1 proficient. So all these are, of course, averaged together once they're all answered. And then it goes to your administrative. So that particular area had 9 questions for professional learning and support services.
Even on the TEL survey, if you remember, that's one of the areas.
Yes.
I always
Oh, yes,
like
always.
professional development, school level, teacher level.
Now, once again, not just this particular school, but all schools, we hope our initiative is to open up every classroom and every teacher's opinion and make it a school-wide program review, not just, small teams. And the very last one, of course, is the writing. And once again, it's in the same format. You can see our county versus the state, and then our county versus in the 4 areas at the bottom.
So again, on curriculum and instruction, that is in that same non-existent area.
On curriculum and instruction, the first had 3 questions, and those particular teachers needs improvement. The next set had 5 questions, and 1 was communication portfolios demonstrate limited student development of writing and communication skills. They rated themselves a 0. And there were 5 questions, and all of them were needs improvement except that one.
So what was kind of the nature of the other questions?
One talks about curriculum provides opportunities for students to utilize technology. Curriculum integrates the strands of literacy. Curriculum is partially aligned vertically and horizontally with core content. And the last one was curriculum provides opportunities for students to practice 21st century learning.
We have to work on this, folks. We have to be, the sense of urgency here. This troubles me terribly with writing. And we saw it even with our K-prep scores, our writing scores were not great. But when I saw this, I'm thinking, ugh. So what are our strategies for fixing it?
I do agree that we do need to look at this now that we are definitely seeing what we're using in our accountability. But in their defense also, this was our first kind of year that we really plugged into it and delved into it deeper. And I hope this year we have a better grasp on that. And I know that the principals are working really hard, and their groups are expanding, and they're really taking it, to the next level, because this is their second year to implement it fully. Can you add anything to that, Brenda?
Well, I would hope that we were not trying to establish a low baseline.
Right, yeah.
Well, as a former principal, over the years, have you seen a decline in the emphasis on writing?
Once you took out
Yes,
the
when you took
That was a loaded question.
And so,
Yes.
As a parent who's seen what's happened over the past
and
12,
this
15
is to
years.
replace, technically, even though we do the on-demand, this is writing over time. This is your writing program, which is how your writing portfolio is built.
Mhm.
And so this was a trade-off.
Yeah.
And so we, have we abandoned the writing process? No. But I think what's happening is maybe when you read the questions, it says, is it occurring in all classrooms? In order to give credit for it, you have to say and have evidence that is occurring in all classrooms, which is very, very, and that's a problem. When we did the program review 2 years ago, it wasn't worded that way. So if it was something that was occurring maybe in 4th and 5th grade, or maybe it was occurring in 7th and 8th grade, we could take credit for it. But when they changed the rubric to all classrooms, and at the high school, if you think about it, you're talking about every classroom. Could that committee say, yes, it is happening? Writing, in the curriculum is in writing, in math classes, PE classes, isn't there? So that's where it's
Maybe that's maybe the right teachers.
I'm sorry.
Well, I know there's writing in PE at the high school.
That committee made up of the right teachers that's assessing the whole school, so as you start to bring more people on, I would hope that you would start to see these others as they come in, they can say in social studies or writing.
We used to have to do that, writing across the curriculum. The yellow notebook with the red lettering, I can see it. We have the training on, if we're outside the content area of language, arts, and writing, we were still responsible for assuring and documenting that we were teaching writing in our outside the content areas. Yeah, I really hope this could become a high priority for our district, because it's, okay, sorry.
It's okay. Do you have any questions about
No other
those
questions.
graphs? Like I said before, the KDE is going to let us know the combined scores at the end of November, is what we're told.
Are they still figuring out how much it's going to?
Well, as of right now, they're saying that the learning generation, the next generation of learners is 77% is a part, and then the program review is going to be 23. So what you do is you multiply your score times the 77, and then your program review times the 23.
Okay, thank you. There will be a 10-minute recess. Convene at 8:36. Next item on the agenda is item number 12, consider approval of revisions in second reading of board policies 03.122 and 03.222, holidays and vacations. Ms. Ryan.
Good evening. Asking for your approval for the second reading
Any changes from the first reading? Any questions from Ms. Ryan? If not, a motion is in order to approve revisions in second reading of board policies 03.122 and 03.222 as presented.
I make a motion to approve the revisions, the second reading of board policies 03.122 and 03.222.
Okay. Motion by Dr. Griffith,
I'll second.
second by Mr. McGowan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
Motion carries 4-1 with Dr. Griffith, Mr. McGowan, Ms. Ritchie, and Dr. Kudak voting yes, and Ms. Hicks voting no. Thank you. Next item is item number 13, consider discussion and approval of electronic signage for new GRC High School and Area Technology Center. Mr. Morrell.
Thank you. I hope you have information in your packet. We have been over this previously, and the reason for it being on the agenda with some discussion and maybe some green light to proceed is that we are rapidly finishing up, obviously, at the high school and also at the Area Technology Center, with it being ready to open in January for the ATC. And so, because this is a significant dollar amount, and there were different options as to whether you wanted to go with a full color, monochrome, what size screen you wanted to try to have, including the ATC on that. We were just looking for a little direction so we could prepare a proposal request in order to be able to get a dollar amount. I think we feel pretty comfortable about a location up along the highway near the church side of your property, so it would be near the entrance.